Welcome to the Fund the People podcast. I'm your host, Rusty Stahl. I'm president and CEO of Fund the People, where our mission is to maximize investment in America's nonprofit workforce. We give funders and nonprofits cutting-edge ideas, research, and tools to help drive equity, effectiveness, and endurance in the social sector. So let's start the show. Welcome, everyone, to the Fund the People podcast. I'm your host, Rusty Stahl. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we've got an excellent episode for you. You're going to hear about how funder control impacts nonprofits and the nonprofit workforce. My guest today is Glen Galaich. He is the CEO of the Stupski Foundation and also the host or co-host of the Break Fake Rules podcast. The reason I say host or co-host is because he started doing more co-hosting and brought in wonderful co-hosts like my buddy Jamie Allison from the Haas Senior Fund. Glen has a new book out called Control, which is his analysis of philanthropic practice of foundations and how they need to change and why they are the way they are. So you're going to hear all about that today, and we're going to talk about how foundation mindsets and practices impact the entire nonprofit sector and what Glen and the Stupski Foundation have been trying to do to change that. So I think you'll get a lot out of the conversation. Glen has worked for over 2 decades in partnership with philanthropists, policymakers, and community leaders to amplify their impact to advance social change. He's got an extensive background in human rights and philanthropy management and a history of building relationships based on his honest outlook and his ability to cut through the noise. Glen previously served as CEO of the Philanthropy Workshop, now called Forward Global, whose mission is to educate, inspire, and activate a peer network of effective, engaged, and innovative philanthropists. So he's worked with a lot of different philanthropists in addition to the donors who created the Stupski Foundation. His career in strategic philanthropy started with the founding team of the Global Philanthropy Forum, where he was responsible for launching the first and second conferences on borderless giving. He's also worked with Human Rights Watch as Director of Development and other groups working on money and social change. So I'm pleased to welcome Glen to the Fund the People podcast.
Awesome. I mean, Rusty, this is something I've been really looking forward to.
Thanks, man. Me too.
You are a pioneer in the sector. It's not often I get to spend time with someone who's built networks and organizations all to the benefit of the workers and the people. So it's just terrific to have time with you.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that. I've been listening to your show and cheering you on for for breaking the fake rules and
for sure,
helping other people too, and having some of those conversations that maybe happen behind closed doors usually, but actually bringing them to light, which is terrific.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of people involved. We're really happy to do it. It's a great way to vent at the end of a day.
It's true. Well, tell folks a little bit about the Stupski Foundation. Just give us the basics, because we'll get into it more as we go.
Well, it's been around for about 25 years, and for the bulk of its existence, it was an operating foundation made up of a very large team of people paid out of the endowment to go out and work on education reform. Larry Stupski is a pretty unknown person, but he's had a major impact on a lot of lives, especially in the foundation sector. He was the guy that took Charles Schwab from being a tiny boutique investment house into an international mega brand. As a result, he became, and his second wife, Joyce, became very wealthy. And at a very young age, Larry died. He basically died, and they saved him on the table. He had a severe heart attack, and they pulled him out of it. And he changed his life. Rumor has it he was a kind of a tough character to work for, and he kind of changed overnight, got very focused on philanthropy and education reform, and made the foundation into an operating structure, and had a very unlucky experience with health. Shortly after that, he gets prostate cancer and metastasizes. He dies relatively young, like 60-something years old. And his widow, Joyce, closed the foundation, let everybody go, and turned it into a spend-down grant-making foundation in 2014. It took a lot of work, but one of the biggest things she did was the spend down. And I'm so grateful for having her do that and to be in that environment. We work in 2 regions, the Bay Area of California and across the state of Hawaii. We work in 4 issue areas. And as all CEOs say, I feel very special. I love my team. I think I have some of the most gifted, talented people working with me. I don't feel I run anything. I feel like I just am there. They're all very talented. They don't need me to tell them what to do. And it's been an incredible run. And we're done in about a year and a half.
Wow. All right. Thank you.
And let me tell you that. Let me just give you one statistic here that I think is kind of interesting, worth considering. If we had stayed a 5% payout foundation over the time I have been there, which will end up being unbelievably 15 years by the time I leave, we would have moved $160 million. That's a lot of money. But instead, because we're a spend down during that time, we'll move $600 million.
Wow.
So that's the impact of spending down. I mean, imagine if we had 12 billion, what we could do in 10 years. Friends and fellow foundations out there.
Wow. What kind of rate do you do to spend down? I know some places seem to have trouble spending down because their endowments keep making money as they spend it more and more.
Yeah.
So what kind of rate do you have to go up to? Or do you take the money out of the market so it stops growing, or how does it work? I know this is nerding out.
No, super great question.
Down,
it's not nerding out. In fact, I would just say I hope it isn't for people. This needs to be the stuff, in my opinion, that has under deep scrutiny in our system. And because it gets referred to, I mean, you and I are, in fact, philanthropy nerds. We are. But there are these elements that should just be standard conversation, and they are held off of the main stage of foundation conferences, meetings, and otherwise chat rooms and such. Number one, why are we invested in hedge funds, mutual funds, depressed real estate schemes, extraction, all of this to make more than 5% annually so we can stay in perpetuity? To answer your question, I'm sorry to say that we had a couple of years where we moved about $25 million and got it all back. And I say I'm sorry because I know the things we were invested in now. I did what most CEOs do at foundations, which is you are told in a very nice way. Joyce very nicely said to me right in our interview together, Joyce Stepsky, so that's who I primarily worked for 7 years. She kind of tapped my knee and said, lucky for you, you don't have to worry about the investments. I'm really good at it. Our investment team's really good. You just stay focused on the grant making. You know, I was like, sure. Yeah, I got to build this dynamic strategy. We're going to spend down. I don't even know how to do it. It took me about 5 years to take a look at what we were really in. I mean, I was seeing balance sheets with names of funds, but I didn't sit down and go through their websites. And when I did, I found that we were in 2 Grand Cayman Island accounts. So that means, a foundation is basically a big tax dodge. So we were doing tax dodging and more tax dodging. We're tax dodging to tax dodge.
Wow.
And that's going on. I'm confident that's going on across all these foundations. And so lots of money is coming back in. To cut to the chase, in my opinion, the only way to really do this well, where you are not doing harm, is to get out. If you have charitable assets, I don't care how people live their lives, how you run your retirement, this is all up to you. But if you are stewarding public, charitable assets with an intention to do something good for the world, you should not be in for-profit investment, in my opinion. I know that's controversial. The impact investors out there are waving around. They're going, what's he saying? You got to, come on. I don't see it yet in impact investing. But the more important thing is that most of these portfolios are in really heavy, deep hedge fundy type stuff. And it's damaging. It's damaging. Just being in stock is damaging. If you look at, I'm always stunned. I pay close attention to who the winners and losers are on a given day. And most of the time, a company is a winner when they fire a lot of people. And those companies are companies that many foundations are naturally in. So if you're in homelessness, if you're in economic empowerment, if you are in equity and justice, and you have $7 million invested in, I don't know, who is the company? Someone just announced a bunch of layoffs the other day, about 15,000 layoffs. They immediately went up in stock price. I'm sure lots of these organizations and foundations are invested in them. So you just created a bunch of job losses while you're supposedly doing economic empowerment with 5% of your assets. So I think this is all upside down. And I really think that's a big part of it. You got to get out of this stuff to really spend down. You hit a really important part. It's a fundamental principle that needs to come in, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Okay, so turn to a slightly less intense topic for the moment.
Yeah, sure.
When did you start podcasting from the foundation? Why? And then tell us the premise of your podcast.
So this is a team effort. I am but a host on the podcast. The mastermind of the podcast is someone named Claire Callahan. Claire is someone I've worked with now for almost, I think when we're all said and done, we'll be over 15 years together. She's someone who's paid attention to some of the dialogue, the conversation inside the foundation. And we have talked now for some time about breaking fake rules, because there are a lot of fake rules in philanthropy. I'll try to shorten the answer and just say there are a lot of fake rules in philanthropy. And she knew that there was an opportunity to bring this to the surface. We tend to honor the foundation leaders who don't break fake rules. They're the ones you see all the time. They're the ones that are in the newspapers. They're the ones that are on the biggest panels. They tend to steward the most money. They do not break fake rules. Sometimes they tell you they do, but when you look really closely, they're absolutely not. We wanted to highlight the people that are. You know, you're one of them, and you're going to be on the podcast soon.
I'm going to try, unless I just break that rule. Never mind. I refuse to be on anyone else's podcast.
But that is what started it. She said, let's do a podcast on this, and it doesn't have to be about Stupski. Let's just feature people that are doing it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And God, it's great. It's like, it's such a highlight. We're on a weekly schedule now. We're doing one a week at least. I now have co-hosts, and it's super fun. It's just a great outlet. And I have been so touched. I didn't go into it to become someone that people recognize, so it's really weird that people do. But when I go into rooms now, I feel like I know you all. That's really fun. But really, it's an outlet, and it's a great way to feature people of a lot of different fake rule breakers. It's not just philanthropy.
Right.
I'll say this one thing about the title. It's dawned on me that the way you get systems change is breaking fake rules.
That is true. That resonates with me. Yeah, I like it because I think the title and the conversation from the ones I've listened to, it in itself offers a truism that doesn't get surfaced enough in philanthropic foundations, because there is very little that foundations have to do by law or by any other rule. And so many of the ways that things are done are just inherited from the people who did them before, either at that foundation or at another one that they're looking at. And so it's like, well, why are we doing it that way? I don't know. We looked around. That's what the norm seems to be, or something like that. There's so much creativity and opportunity that could be exploited within and by the foundations that isn't, because people think they have to do things a certain way. One of the rationales for having the foundation sector is that it can be this risk-taking, long-term thinking. It's not quarterly earnings, is not the measure. 4-year election cycles is not. It could be 20, 30, 100 years if you're in perpetuity or whatever. Even if you're not an endowed foundation, you could still be doing things with longer term in mind. But for some reason, so many foundations have like a 1-year grant cycle in mind. It's like, why? Why do you have a year viewpoint when you could have one of the few institutions in society that could actually have this much longer term view, take a lot more risks, and not suffer any consequences? So I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you. Well, as you know, I have a view on why it happens that way.
Yes, that's true. And thankfully, you've written a book about it. So,
and that is it. Yeah. The title of that book is It. The word is control. That's why you got 1-year grant cycles. It's why you've got perpetuity. It's why you have crazy concepts like absorptive capacity and capacity building. These are all things that have been created in a spirit of control. And it's why the concept of trust-based philanthropy is such a revolutionary idea, because it's standing in front of control. My book is not about trust-based philanthropy. My book, I believe if you buy what I'm selling, you're going to find yourself heading down the pathway to trust-based philanthropy. You're going to find your way over to Voulet and what he's writing about and reimagining. I believe it's reimagining philanthropy. And if you follow the path, you end up in Dimple Abad-Chandani's warm arms to show you how to do it.
The new era of philanthropy. We're having her on the show this season as well.
They show you what you can do when you get there. But there is a conversion that is required to go from control to community engagement. And I can tell you, when you're on the far end of control, all the ideas of community engagement look like something out of another universe. So you have to really get underneath the hood of how control shows up, how it dominates your life as a foundation, and challenge it. And that's the book.
Now, what I love about this is that you're not just railing against practices and beliefs that you have always disagreed with. You actually had this experience. I mean, you started out in philanthropy in the strategic philanthropy bandwagon,
right,
which is the more control-oriented. The funders have a strategy, and the grantees are kind of implementing it on their behalf. And when I came into the field in 2000, that was the big thing. That was the big conversation, the dominant conversation in the field.
We walked in together, Rusty.
So it's been interesting to see things like trust-based philanthropy become a more dominant conversation. I don't think it's a more dominant practice in terms of what people are actually doing in foundations, but it's certainly become much more trendy than strategic philanthropy is anymore. But before we kind of talk more about what control looks like in the foundations in the book, you've already shared a little bit about your conversion as it relates to listening to different folks in the field, but can you specifically talk about what it was like working under and believing in strategic grant-making principles and ideas and then shifting in this way?
I think it starts with one premise, which undergirds our entire philanthropic and foundation system, and we give permission to it as Americans. So everybody plays a role. That's the beauty of a system. We all play a role. And the core element is a belief that goes back to Carnegie. Dimple talks about this in some detail in her book. You guys can get into this. She's done some really creative work around this. It all comes back to Carnegie, really does. And we really haven't challenged until recently the Carnegiean view, which is this economic system will have winners and losers. It'll have mostly losers. And there'll be these extraordinary winners. And those winners are special. They really are. And they will have a lot of money. As you follow his argument, you're kind of like, ooh, that's nasty. But then he gets to this great place where he says it's wrong for them to leave this planet with all that money. They should give it away to the losers, essentially, who can't do this system, and help them. That is the premise upon which all of this is built, all of it. And yes, it's evolved and it's morphed and it's gone one way and another way. It's been monetized. It's been institutionalized. But that is really what it comes down to. So, for example, if you were smart enough to design an online auction platform where I got to sell all of my old Star Wars figures, you obviously are smart enough to solve democracy, human rights, and malaria. I mean, that's the premise of the whole thing. So we're all playing a role. The donor plays a role. The financial system plays a role. The grantees play a role. We all play a role. But when you tell somebody that they are the be-all, end-all of everything, you should expect them to do nothing more than take control and do it their way. So this book isn't an accusatory book. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm not belittling anyone. I'm actually, as I wrote this book, I've become far more empathetic for donors and everyone in the picture than when I started it. But that, if you just take it from there, you kind of see how this plays out. And so in the first half of the book, you can't go through everything in our system, but I do spend some time on the certain elements that are really important for what I call the bricks in the wall around the donor that really lock in their control. And I mostly speak to things that I have experience in. So being a CEO of a foundation, I try to really get in deep. And the other great thing about being a CEO of a foundation is all the time I've gotten to spend with other ones. And there's just so many common patterns. And I go through some of those. And I don't call us CEOs anymore. I call us gates, that we're basically just gatekeeping administrators. And in many ways, we are therapists for the family. So that's just an example. But the core of it is we've built this system. We're all playing roles in it. And we do have agency to both knock out the system, which will be harder. So the easier thing is just to reflect on how your control is showing up and start to take steps out of it. Because ultimately, I think my experience thus far, I'm sure yours, is that the more the community is involved in the public stewardship of these assets, the higher the impact. And that's, I think, what all of us want in the end.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking about that. Yeah, like the bigger you get, the harder it is to be grounded in reality.
I hear you on that. I hope we can challenge that in practice at some point. But I hear you. I think in the way we are set up right now, it's kind of that way.
Yeah.
But something I've been putting out there quite a bit lately, just as a thought experiment, of course, I'd like to see it actually happen, is every day you can go online, and if you're in a chat group in the sector or reading Inside Philanthropy or anything, you're going to see probably a statement from a foundation. You know, we are in solidarity with the people of Minneapolis, or we are in solidarity with the immigrants of America. What you're not going to see is, and here's what we're going to do about it. You might see a whole bunch of foundations sign on to one of those statements. I mean, there might be some things they're going to do about it. We'll show up at the rally. We will hold some important meetings. We might start a pooled fund where we're going to put $5 million of our $75 billion into. But there isn't like a visionary, creative, out of the box. A lot of the conferences that foundations hold, look at the words we like to put in the titles. One of our favorites is bold. We love bold. Can't get enough of bold.
So tasty.
I guarantee you this year I'm going to go to 4 conferences that have either courage, bold, or vision. And if there are 3 words that do not come up for me when I think of the foundation sector, it's bold, vision, courage.
That's why the conferences have to use them.
Right. That's right. It's an aspiration. But really, what is a foundation measured by? In my opinion, it's measured by how much money it moves. So I've just been kicking this around in my head lately and somewhat publicly that a lot of peers we have in the foundation sector are sitting on, $9 billion plus. And they're moving small amounts. They're saying, well, we're going to give 1% more than we did last year. We're going to give 2% more than we did last year. And I've just been wondering, like, when you look at the world today and the need to build some really powerful institutions to counter back authoritarianism, I think you can get it all. I think you can still be the biggest foundation in the sandbox. You still get to be the plenary speaker. You still get to have your name in all the media. And you can give away one of your 12 billion. You just give away one to launch a litigation, investigation, prosecution organization that ensures that when autocrats are rising, we've got a counter to it. We've got a fail-safe because the government can get overrun by itself and we don't have a fail-safe. We could build that institution. 1 of your billion. If we had 10 of these multi-billion foundations all give 1 billion. Again, I think you can be just as exciting a foundation at 8 billion as at 9, at 10 as at 11. If we all just dumped 1, built a $10 billion counter entity to autocratic rise, and I'll let everybody else figure out what that is. It can be something that supports what goes on in the streets to something that supports what needs to be done in the halls of justice. 10 billion would probably get you a pretty good organization. And that's the lack of vision, the lack of creativity, the lack of boldness and courage. If that announcement came out tomorrow, I probably have to not publish my book. But it's not going to come out. I mean, that part is not coming out. And imagine that world. And think about it for so many things. Like if every multi-billion-dollar foundation this year just gave up 1 extra billion, nobody loses.
Yeah. We are in a very dire situation, and it does call for all the things you said: boldness, creativity, risk, whatever you want to call it, experimentation, trying things. Try things. That's how you find out if they work or not.
But the way they get tried, Rusty, is they get tried within that 5%. They get tried inside the 5%. Look what Marguerite Casey did this year, and I can tell you, hanging out with Carmen, that it's fun to hang out with Carmen with what she's working with. They have $1 billion, and they said, hey, we can live with 900 million. We're good. So Carmen, here's an extra 100. Go do your thing. And there wasn't a room I was in with her where she'd hear an idea and she'd be like, we're going to put 3 million to that. And it just is a game changer every time she did it. And we're out of money, but we were inspired by that. Last year, we moved 70% of our grant making operation. We were intending to move 25%. We moved 70. I'm not asking for everybody to do that, but Think about how many foundation leaders right now, their jaw just hit the table. 70% of your grant making? That's just not heard of, but it is the freedom we have as a spend down. So I know that's a whole thing, but
what does that mean, 70% of your grant making?
So we went into the year, we had about 100 million left in grant making assets. So we moved 70 million.
I see. Is that the total assets of the endowment?
That is the amount of the endowment that we dedicated to grant making. The rest is for operations to close us out.
Gotcha.
I think we were at like 140, which is going to take us to the end of the line to 2030 when we officially, the state of California says, you are free to go.
You no longer exist. Yeah.
And we could have stretched that out. We could have said, we're going to make it only 5%. We're only going to give away 5 million for the rest of the way. And we're going to earn it all back and blah, 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 blah. We could have done that. But we just said, I didn't actually say this, to be fair, to be honest. The program team looked at all the grantees in their portfolios, saw the stress coming on in this year, saw the government cutting everything back, saw student loans coming back on, all these different things, said, we got to move faster. We got to move 70%. 25% is not enough.
One thing you said to me during our call to prepare for this was that there's a big gray area between acting for the perpetuity of a foundation and acting to spend it down. That there's a big range of things that could happen in there and that can be productive. I don't think your message is everyone should spend down. It's everyone should be doing a lot more. Giving a lot more. It doesn't mean spend down per se. So I was curious to hear you talk a little bit about that. What does that gray zone look like?
This is the core of the book. Control Why Big Giving Falls Short, which is the name of the book. The gray area to me all starts with a willingness, an openness to really ask community what they need. I'm willing to bet if I came to you as a fresh donor and I said, I can give you $1 for your organization. I have $1 here, but I'm not sure you want the dollar. Would you rather just have a nickel? Can we do a nickel? What would you say to that, Rusty? Do you want the nickel or do you want more than a nickel of the dollar?
I'd love the dollar.
You like the dollar. You want the whole thing. Well, that is the gray area we're talking about, meaning if the community needs more than the nickel, but that's all we give away on average in the foundation sector. We only give out a nickel on every dollar. So if the community needs something in between the nickel and the dollar, we need to be more responsive to that. What it means is that if you're giving more than, let's say, a dime or a quarter or a 50-cent piece, it's harder to earn that back. And the stuff you have to get into to earn it back is the stuff that probably the Trump family is in, like really deep Bitcoin corrupty stuff. So you're going to have to accept that you're also going to have to stop doing harm with your investments. And you probably want to do that anyway. So the gray area is that kind of sitting in that zone of doing what the community needs with as little harm as possible. You could, I suppose, if you really aren't listening clearly what they're saying, you could say to yourself, I think I can keep this going forever. But I think the tensions around harm and need are going to prevent that. And so I spend time at the very last chapter of the book just trying to talk to people about getting comfortable with spend down, because I think you have to do this well. I don't think there's really a choice there. But in the gray area, there are interesting things you can do. If you do say, hey, look, he's an extremist. I can't go with where he's going, but I am willing to kind of consider some things he's talking about. One thing is what Marguerite Casey did. I think it's a really interesting concept. I really was enlightened by it. Carmen and I have had many conversations about spending down. We've done it publicly. She has not agreed with me in the past. I think she's coming around. But they chose what I said earlier. They said, look, we have this much. We're okay if we want to be this big. So we're a billion, maybe 800 million. Totally cool to work with. So let's take 200 million and move it right now. It's a crisis. I think that's a great model. That's kind of what I'm saying on a broader scale to some of these multi-billion foundations. Like, you can still be cool at 10 billion, even though you have 11 now. Why don't you just use one and you can still be there? You can still be in perpetuity. You can still have all the investments. The world is asking for help right now. They're asking for more than 6%. They're asking for more than 8%. They're asking for 15, 20%. You can do that and not have to tilt all the way into my world. You can be around, to use a phrase that all perpetuity foundations use, you can be around to help for problems down the road if you want to be. But while you're here, let's try to do a little more on the problems that exist today. That's all we're saying. And the one thing I really want to get out there before we close out, and if you go to the website for the book, which is at stupsky.org/control, the web team did this beautiful ticker, and it shows how much money is going to get piled up in these charitable assets. By the time we get to 2050, which is not far from now, we're going to see charitable assets go from 2 trillion to 18 trillion. Sitting in these accounts. And I have just one question for the foundation sector. If there's 18 trillion sitting there in hedge funds and speculative, extractive investing, how long before the American people come in and go, we'd like that back, please. We're going to need that. We are now $60 trillion in debt. We'd like to take 18. And if you don't start giving, the American people are going to start knocking. If we don't change our behavior, if we don't question our practices, if we don't reflect upon the control that we hold over these assets, it's going to go away. And I would like not to see that happen. I'd like to see us just become community-engaged donors by taking steps away from donor control.
You mentioned the bricks that sort of make up these walls of control around the donors. And one of the things that when it comes to investing in the nonprofit workforce from foundations that I see as a problem is the overhead myth, the whole idea of the overhead ratio. And again, back to this administrative cost thing. Most of nonprofit budgets are salaries and benefits and contracts with people, basically people costs. So I was curious how you see this control fortress relating to the overhead myth.
I think it starts with the fact that at 5% payout, the control part is I'm only going to give away as much as I have to so that I can earn it back and be around forever. That's my most important priority. So I say it all the time. We continue to put perpetuity over humanity. And I'm not saying that because it sounds cool or evil, but it is true. We are prioritizing perpetuity over humanity. And that, what you just described, is one of the significant outcomes of putting perpetuity over humanity. If you are sitting on billions and billions of dollars, and you know these organizations out there desperately need it so we can all win, we are all on the same team. These people who work tirelessly, who take on the trauma of our society, who deliver incredible services, we're so grateful that they are our partners, that you fight for them, Rusty. Why we deprive them of the salaries they deserve so that we can live in perpetuity is beyond me. I just can't put my head around it. But again, it's the control coming through and saying, we have the ability, we are in control, and we are going to prioritize being here forever over paying people what they need now. And I really think it is probably the biggest, most significant factor of control is what you just described. We have created a deprivation economy in the social sector with $2 trillion sitting in the bank. I've been staring at that vexing problem for 5 years and trying to figure out, and people are tired of me walking in rooms, I'm sure. When I walk in a room, they're like, oh God, here he goes again. But it is vexing to me that we accept it at all. And I think, just to finish this point, and I don't mean to put this on nonprofits, because believe me, I do my share of hammering away at foundations. So I think I can say this to nonprofits, but I think nonprofits, the role we play or they play is not speaking up more loudly. I know there's a power dynamic, but we need to find a way for nonprofits to start to say, whether it is through the CEP surveys that are done, grantee perception reports that are done, there needs to be more language back at foundations saying to them, you are depriving us of the ability to work. Depriving us. And that needs to be louder. It needs to be pushed. It needs to be said. It needs to be said in uncomfortable spaces. And foundations need to reflect on that. And I think it could help a lot. It's not the thing that's going to change it, but it could really help.
Well, the book, as of this publication, the book is out now. So folks, if you want to learn more, just go to stupsky.org/control. That's stupski.org/control. And the book is called Control: Why Big Giving Falls Short by Glen Galaich. So thank you, Glen, for being here and for having this freewheeling conversation. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to being on the Break Fake Rules podcast too and talking about the fake rules I think we should be breaking.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thanks for listening to the Fund the People podcast. Visit fundthepeople.org and click on podcast to find the show notes and resources from this and other episodes. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating and a quick review or comment in your podcast app of choice. It helps more people to find the show. To get the extended version of this interview, plus lots of bonus content, I invite you to join our Patreon community. Visit patreon.com/fundthepeople to subscribe today. Thank you for the work you do. Remember to keep your tank full, take care of yourself, and take care of one another.